Hello, let's begin with our last session for this week on the Cal Imperfect Week verb. Now, this verb that we're going to look at now is weak because it has a three-hay verb. Now, a three-hay verb means that a hay is located in that third consonantal position. So, imperfect three-hay verbs have the segol hay ending in those forms without a sufformative. As we have here, we have yivna and evna. Now, the imperfect three-hay verbs with a sufformative, they don't have the final segol hay. Here we have yibnu and tibnu. And then we have the identical 3FP and 2FP forms exhibit a segol yod stem. This variation is unusual, but it really shouldn't pose any difficulty for you for the identification of these forms. The segol yod has just been replaced with the hay. If you can remember this, then you're going to see that the segol yod, and when you see the segol yod, you're going to know that it's replaced the hay, and you'll be able to identify this as that three-hay weak verb. Now here's a paradigm that gives you all of these, and let's pronounce the first few. Yivna, tivna, tivna, evna, yevna, yevno. And I'm sorry that this thing keeps going off focus for us. So when we see these three-hay verbs, some of the things, I'm going to try to see if I can get it to come back out again on me. When we see these three-hay verbs, imperfect forms without a sufformative, and they have the hay segol ending. And this makes it seem as though the stem vowel of this weak class has shifted from a holum to a segol. There we go, finally panning back out again. It shifts from a holum to a segol. And the final hay in these forms is not, however, the original third root consonant, but rather a vowel letter. Now, while this final hay is not the original consonant, there we go, shifting out again. While the final hay is not the original consonant, it does make identification of the verbal root easier in these forms. Even in the derived stems, the hay segol ending will be diagnostic of most three-hay imperfect forms. Now, I recommend this information is I think very clearly given to you in section 16.6 and 16.7. So I recommend that you go back and carefully read and go through this material until it becomes a part of you and it's familiar to you. The one guttural verbs, there's two types of one guttural verbs, and each type is classified by their stem vowel. Type 1 has a pathos stem vowel, and type 2 has a holum stem vowel. Here you have Yahazak, and it's an EEA vowel, and then you have Yahamod, and it's an AAO vowel. Now, because based on their stem vowels, there are two types of these one guttural weak verbs in the imperfect. And type 1 verbs have a pathic stem vowel and a segol performative vowel and a hatef segol under the guttural consonant in the first root position, as you can see here with Yahazak. Now, the type 2 verbs have a holum stem vowel, a pathic performative vowel, and a hatef pathik under the guttural consonant in a first root position, as you can see here in this. Now, with the first type, the one guttural weak, you'll look at the vowel, and it is an E, E, A. Now, in the type 2, it is an A, O vowel setup there. And that will help you with pronunciation as well as with identification. some of the things that you will need to remember about these type 1 gutturals. And again, this is material that's found in your book on pages 179 and pages 180. There are two types, as I've already said, of one guttural weak verbs. Each type is classified by its stem vowel. The type 1 has a pathic stem vowel, and type 2 has a holum stem vowel. Recognition rather than memorization is what we are going for in this particular guttural verb form. So you're not going to be required to reproduce these these verbal paradigms, but you do need to be able to identify them quickly when you're translating and doing your work for the class. Now, this is 16.9. Type 1 verbs with a pathic stem exhibit a sagol performative vowel followed by a hatef sagol under the guttural in the first root positions. Only those forms having a sufformative consisting of a vowel, 2fs, the 3mp, and the 2mp, the vowel under the guttural is just sagol in a closed syllable. And the type 2 verbs with a holum stem vowel generally exhibit a pathic performative vowel and a hatef pathic under the guttural in the first root position. The only exception to this pattern is the 1cs form with sagol under the performative and the hatef sagol under the guttural. Note that the vowel under the guttural is just pathic in a closed syllable in the 2fs. Now, while I know that this is an incredible amount of material to memorize, I do want to call your attention to the sheet that you're allowed to take into your quiz with you. This information is given for you on this sheet so that if you can identify your first, second guttural weaks, your aleph, your hey weak verbs, if you can identify your weak verb, you can find the paradigm and you can figure out how to translate and even parse those verbs. So with that, that's going to be the end for this week. I will pick up with 16.10 for next week, and you'll be responsible for that next week. So your workbook is your friend. Do your workbook and do it until you have it perfected. And try not to use your answer key with your workbook until you're completely finished and you use it to check your work and not to do your work.